So Daniel's in exile in Babylon, and the king of Babylon is Nebuchadnezzar. In Habakkuk 2:4, God himself described Nebuchadnezzar as the puffed up one. And he said about him, his soul is not right within him, right? He says he's never satisfied. He gathers all nations to himself. He collects people for himself. And the God that he worships is his own strength. And the Lord also describes him in multiple places as my servant, which doesn't mean he's endorsing Nebuchadnezzar's ways. He's just making clear that at the end of the day, this crazy king answers to me. God's saying he responds to my summons, right? His strength that he worships is empty, but I'm not. In Daniel chapter 2, God gives Nebuchadnezzar a dream, and it's not just any dream. It's one of the most profound dreams in all of Scripture. And the dream shakes Nebuchadnezzar to his core. Ultimately, it's a dream revealing to him that no matter how powerful or self-sufficient he thinks he is, the God of Israel is the ultimate authority. But Nebuchadnezzar doesn't get that yet. Here's something that's amazing to me, is this isn't a dream that's the result of Nebuchadnezzar's subconscious desires, right? This is a dream from the Lord himself, right here in the midst of this chaos. And even if it's to the mad king, the Lord, the King of Kings, is still speaking in the midst of the chaos. In the chaos, in the place of exile and the fear and the discomfort, where you may feel alone and isolated and abandoned by God, the Lord wants you to know that he's with you even here. He's still speaking. The Lord told the prophet Ezekiel in Ezekiel 10:16, he says, I myself will be a sanctuary for my people in the places where I've scattered them. Ultimately, the Lord reveals to Daniel, I've got you here, kiddo. You're not at the mercy of a crazy king. He's my servant, and I will enter his dreams, and I will shake him by showing him my glorious purposes that he's just a part of. Right? So again, Nebuchadnezzar's given this dream, and it rattles him so that he can't sleep. And he demands that his wise men not just tell him what the dream means, but they're to tell him what the dream was, right? Tell me what I dreamt, and then tell me what it meant. And if you don't, he says, I'll dismember you and reduce your house to rubble. And we'd be like, well, about the house, fine, but you had me at ripping off my limbs. So all of his wise men said, that's impossible. No one can do that. We can't tell you what your dream was. And so Nebuchadnezzar says, well, if you can't do it, you're useless to me. I'll just have you all killed. And so word reaches Daniel about this because apparently he's in the group that's going to be killed. And does he panic? Does he freak out? No, actually, Daniel goes to the captain of the guard, to the very person who's been tasked with overseeing all these wise man executions. And the scripture says that Daniel spoke to his executioner with tact and discretion, asking him for a little time to get the dream and its interpretation. In the chaos, there's just this faithful steadiness of Daniel. I mean, he's a teenager in a foreign land under a death threat from a mad king, fully aware that he himself doesn't have any personal power to exercise. Right? He just has this unshakable certainty. His life is in the hands of a God who is able. And so he didn't live in fear. He wasn't paralyzed by anxiety. He didn't let worry rule his world. He and his friends prayed. They sought the Lord, and then Daniel went to sleep. During the night, God showed Daniel what the dream was, and he gave him the interpretation. And when Daniel woke, he didn't just rush off to the king. He stopped. He worshiped the Lord. And there's such a clear contrast between the anxiety of the insomniac, crazy king and this rock-steady rest and worship of Daniel. And the king who has everything, who collects nations and people and takes and takes and takes and conquers, and he's never satisfied. He has a dream he can't conquer, and he's unhinged, he's troubled. The dream felt threatening, and now he's ready to lash out and threaten and destroy others, strike fear into them. He can't sleep, right? And in contrast to the king is the captive, Daniel. Facing dismemberment and death, Daniel goes to sleep, sleeps through the night, has a good night's rest, and God gives him the dream. And he wakes up and he worships the Lord. With trust and confidence in the God of heaven, he praises the Lord. His peace is not rooted in the circumstances in front of him, but rather in the faithful, eternal God who is in control. Daniel worshiped the Lord. And then he took the message to the king, right? And it wasn't good news for Nebuchadnezzar. King, you're basically the first in a line of empires that will fall. Like Daniel spoke the truth to the crazy king. He didn't pander. This young man didn't let his knees knock with fear when he got close to the crazy king. He was steady. He knew who the King of Kings was. Look, we can rest and be faithful in the chaos. Like Daniel, we may find ourselves in situations that are beyond our control, right? Surrounded by instability, facing threats that can seem overwhelming. But remember, the same God who gave Daniel peace and wisdom in the midst of Babylon's madness is with you. He's your sanctuary, even in the most turbulent times. When anxiety starts to creep in, when fear starts to shake your confidence, pause. Take a moment to remember who truly is in control. Just like Daniel did, seek the Lord in prayer and then rest in his presence. Trust that he's still speaking, he's still working, he's still in control no matter how chaotic the world around you may seem. Let his peace guard your heart and guard your mind when the world around you is unsteady. You can be steady knowing your life is securely in the hands of the one who holds all things together. Rest in the chaos because the God of peace, the God of shalom, is with